All right, welcome to week one. We've finally made it. Thank goodness. Week one, BackSportsPage Sunday Morning Fantasy. I'm your host, Ryan Stern. Join with me again this year, Marthani Sanders. Welcome back, man.
Man,
It's fine because normally, as a Mets fan, I ask them to just make things interesting until football, until like the beginning of preseason, just because I know that that's usually when they start to tail off. But now they're actually good. But I'm still excited about football season, and the Giants and or uh, the Mets are going to be playing opposite a bunch of really good 1 o'clock games, and I'm probably still going to be watching football just because. What's better than a football Sunday?
I mean, nothing compares to it. Just the fact that you can get up and wake up and know that there's going to be football for what 8 9
Nine
hours.
9 hours of football.
Like it's nothing better than that. Capped off obviously the fact that college football has been starting too. So if you're a real big avid football fan, you've been living the dream, and now you get a full weekend of just nothing but football.
Yeah, and we had, some great football games yesterday in the college ranks. Unfortunately, my Notre Dame Fighting Irish are just, they looked so competitive in the first half against Ohio State, and then it's just been 6 quarters of absolute trash football, going and losing at home to Marshall. We saw Texas A&M lose to Appalachian State. We saw
Right.
Alabama almost lose to Texas. A lot of craziness yesterday in college football.
Yeah, it was a wild week too for sure. But that's the beauty of it. Yeah, you
Yeah.
just never know.
All right. So we are going to get into the fantasy week ahead of us. Again, we will be taking your start sit questions live on air. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, whether you're watching YouTube, Twitter, uh, Facebook. If you're watching on Twitter, reply to the comment. We'll get it live on air. And again, on YouTube and Facebook, make sure you leave it in the comments, and we will get to your questions. We will have our best bets of the week, and of course, our studs, duds, and sleepers for week one. So let for before we get into it, both of us are fans of teams that aren't expected to do a whole lot this year. Me with my Giants, you with your Atlanta Falcons. We were talking before the show started, and you said your confidence factor was around a 4. And I was saying that's a lot higher than I have with my Giants. So a li- break down a little bit of what you're expecting from the Falcons, maybe week one, and then a little bit long term.
Well, what I'm looking for in Atlanta for week one is to just to be competitive. Last year in week one was awful against Philadelphia. The first two drives looked promising, but stalled on field goals, and then pretty much after that, offense was non-existent. Defense couldn't stop anything. So of course, the first thing is just trying to see how competitive they can be. Uh, Try to turn those drives into instead of field goals, get into touchdowns. Let's see if we can get Kyle Pitts a touchdown on American soil this year. It's it, See how confident Marcus Mariota is. Obviously, this is an offense that he is familiar with Arthur Smith being in Tennessee before, but now this is his second chance of being quarterback number one. So just really want to see, and then defensively, uh, the pass rushers. I mean, we've brought in uh, a lot of different guys in as far as like Lorenzo Carter. Obviously, there's Grady Jarrett there, but it seems like really since these last 10 to 12 years, there's been no type of consistency on the defensive line to pass rush to get to the quarterback. And obviously, if you can't get any pressure on the quarterback, that makes it hard for your linebackers and secondary. Which the secondary is actually it's pretty decent this year. Um, but if we can't get rushing can rush a quarterback is make it hard for your secondary to keep up with those receivers and tight ends out there.
Yeah, and you mentioned Lorenzo Carter, a former Giant, and he was somebody that I always thought was going to be able to give more than we ever saw on the field. I thought there was so much untapped potential within his game, and we just never seemed to get it out of him. And if anyone is able to get it out of him, he's going to be a really good player in the NFL. So, yeah, with my Giants, and it's crazy because now we're coming into Daniel Jones' fourth season as a starting quarterback, and it's his third system. Uh, this is obviously going to be the system that's going to allow him, in my opinion, to succeed more than the others have. I think they're going to actually put a lot more trust into him uh, this year than he ever was allowed to. They do have a bunch of weapons with a lot of, again, untapped potential. You're looking at Kadarius Toney. You're looking at Wan'Dale Robinson. You're looking at someone who's being talked about as being one of the biggest bust free agency signings of all time with Kenny Galladay. They have a rookie tight end who I really like out of San Diego State, Daniel Bellinger. I think this kid can be pretty good. I think he's going to be a red zone option for them this year. And then of course there's Saquon Barkley. I mean, Saquon Barkley is the ultimate chess piece of this offense. Um, they can put him anywhere, and everything's going to be based on whether or not that offensive line has improved in the least bit. We're expecting the tackles to be solid. Over the last 10 weeks of the season, Andrew Thomas was actually ranked as a top 5 offensive tackle in the NFL. And now they bring in Evan Neal, who they took at number 7 in the draft, who at one point was being talked about as the number 1 overall draft pick, and he falls into their lap at 7. Tackles they should be fine at. That interior of the line really scares me though. So sort of like what Tom Brady's going to be facing down in Tampa. The
Yeah,
tackle play should be well, but all 3 interior offensive linemen are going to be different, and it's not that they had a whole lot of time to go out and replace those guys. There were surprise late retirements with Ali Marpet, who retired after the draft. Ryan Jensen goes down at the beginning of training camp. So the interior of the offensive line, if they can play better than expected, the Giants can win 7, 8 games. They do have one of the easier schedules in the league, so that's why that number I think can get that high. Realistically, they're probably still a 5, 6 win team. Uh, and if that happens, then we'll probably see a new guy under center next year, considering the depth of the quarterbacks that are going to be in the 2023 NFL draft.
yeah. It's funny you mentioned about interior offensive alignment. That's the same issue that pretty much Atlanta has too. I mean, they were having a battle here at the center position between Matt Hennessy and Drew Dalman just to figure out who could be that guy under center. Um, Jalen Mayfield was thrust in last year as a rookie at the I think both left and right guard positions, and he had a tough rookie season. It's interesting to see how that offensive line holds up too, and the running back position. I mean, there's Cordell Patterson there, but I think he can only do so much at this point. There's not too many like bell cows in running back anymore. It's not like how it was
Right.
back then. You have to do it by committee at this point to succeed. And I mean, obviously now there's a Damian Williams is there, and they drafted Tyler Algier, which I think he's going to have a pretty good season.
So I'm speaking, just bringing this full circle to fantasy. I'm going to have a lot of decisions to make because I have a lot of shares of Tyler Algier. Tyler
Man,
Algier is inactive for week 1.
yeah,
Um, how long do you try and hold on to someone who you think is going to end up taking over the? Because I think Tyler Algier may be the most gifted running back that they have in terms of physical skills. Cordell Patterson's athletic, but he's still so new to the position.
yeah.
Um, I think Tyler Algier has all the makings of coming out and being the starting running back at some point. But how long do you hold on to someone that if they're going to make him inactive over the first couple weeks?
I know that's tough just because I mean, obviously, there wasn't any like big, big name running backs that were coming out of this year's draft where you can thrust them in and to be a starter because the way you feel about Tyler Algier is how I feel about James Cook in,
Right.
in in Buffalo. Obviously, he got some touches, but he had a fumble in the opening night game, so that kind of makes you leery
You
down and
got the
wonder how
David
many
Wilson
more.
treatment after that.
Yeah, yeah. So it's just it's tough when you make you go through your drafts and seeing who's available and because you start to think long term once you get out of that once you get to like rounds 9, 10, 11, you start to wonder like okay who can I get to where later on down the season they can actually probably help me get into the playoffs or win the whole league. So not being not able to be active on week 1 for Tyler G, that's kind of tough, but it's so early. You don't want to
Yeah.
panic too hard.
And it's funny because a lot of times you see the people who are in the I'll only do my drafts in like a week or so before the season starts. And I was able to I got pretty heavy into the into underdog this off season. Did a lot of best ball drafts starting even as early as June, but throughout the month of July, I was doing almost maybe like 3 or 4 a week. And the price that I was able to get on one particular player just literally kept going up and up every single week. And that's Damian Pierce. Damian Pierce is someone that I was that I was high on because I thought that he had the potential to be the RB1 by week 4 or 5. And this was as like I said, as early as June and July. I was getting him in like the 12th round of drafts. Now the week before the season started, he was going in the 4th, 5th round of drafts, and as much as I liked the prospect of Damian Pierce, what I liked most about him was his price tag in drafts early on. He's still the running back of the Houston Texans. We have to remember that.
Right,
This
right.
is not a good football team. In the 12th round, 10th round, ninth round, yeah, he's going to provide value getting there. But the hype on Damian Pierce just got out of hand.
Out of nowhere.
Yeah. Uh,
Out of
so
nowhere.
so I mean he like I said he's someone that I got a lot in early drafts and I just wasn't willing to pull the trigger um as we got late into draft season. So let's get into the actual picks. So we'll actually start off with our best bets of the week. So um, I know you and I actually shared one of our best bets. So why don't you kick it off with what you think is your top one?
The top one I see is definitely out there in the AFC West with the Las Vegas Raiders and the Los Angeles Chargers. Obviously, we saw the matchup what happened last year with the game. Basically, winner take all, getting the playoff spot. That was pretty much toe to toe. I expect that to happen again. The over underline is at 52. I think it'll go over that just because I know the Chargers. Everybody's looking at the Chargers and all the pieces that they added on the defensive side. But once again, it's week 1. I do have to take that into consideration. Who's to say that all the pieces are together yet? Because teams are not playing their guys in preseason anymore. So week one, it may seem like it's together, maybe the first quarter, but after the second quarter, you might see a little fatigue, which we saw on Thursday night too, with the Bills and Rams. And then the fact that the Raiders have Devontae Adams now, Hunter Renfro, Darren Waller, Derek Carr, and Justin Herbert should definitely have a shootout. And I'd be shocked if it didn't get over 52.
Yeah, that was the one that I. There are two bets that I'm most heavily invested in uh, this week. That's one of them. Them going over 52. The other one that I'm actually most heavily invested in, it's involving my boys, the New York Giants, and the line is 44 right now between them and the Titans. I just don't see any way you can get a 24-20 game out of these two teams. The Titans, I think, are very. They feel very disrespected with how they're being viewed at. They were the number one seed in the AFC after all last year, but it's a team that took a big hit. What, a week or two ago on their defense when they lost Harold Landry.
Yeah,
I still do think that they have a pretty good defense, and this is a Giants offense who's going into week one of a completely new coaching staff and system. And then you have on the other side of the ball, Ryan Tannehill, who I think is just degressing before our eyes. I It would not shock me if we saw Malik Willis as the starting quarterback for this team before the season is over. Robert Woods, coming off an ACL injury, right now is their number one wide receiver. They have Treylon Burks, who was in and out of practice all training camp, and Nick Westbrook Ikine. I mean, the Giants don't have a great secondary, but this is not a wide receiver core that a lot of teams are going to be scared of.
right.
The Giants' new defensive coordinator is Wink Martindale, who has plenty of experience in the AFC, with his time with Baltimore, um, and dealing with a great rushing attack. I think he's going to sell out to stop Derrick Henry. Again, I don't think you can stop Derrick Henry for a complete game, but he's going to make Ryan Tannehill beat them. I don't see Ryan Tannehill being able to go up and down the field at will. So I like the Giants and Titans under 44.
Yeah, I thinking about all that now. I'm like, man, there's no way that game is going to be. Yeah, that's probably going to be one of those ones where it's definitely going to be a struggle for sure.
Yeah,
Very low scoring. I know another one of my best bets I'm looking at. We mentioned about Damian Pearson and the Houston Texans having to play the Indianapolis Colts. I think the last time I saw the line, the spread was Colts as a touchdown favorite.
yeah, it's still
Uh,
7.
Indy should still easily cover that. They were in a lot of close games last year, but that was obviously due to Carson Wentz being Carson Wentz. Um, it may not be a huge upgrade, but it's an upgrade nonetheless. Getting Matt Ryan, at least you'll know that uh, the careless turnovers probably won't happen. Uh, One of the best offensive lines, uh, running backs with Jonathan Taylor and Naheem Hines there. So Michael Pittman Jr. And Houston just has a long way to go with their roster. It's probably one of, if not maybe the worst roster
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
league.
they'll be
So
in contention probably for that number one pick
yeah,
next year. Yeah, I also have in a couple parlays. I have the Indy -7. My second best bet of the week is the Philadelphia Eagles -5.5 again in Detroit against the Lions. And I know a lot of people are coming off the the hard knocks high of the Detroit Lions. Everyone's buying in because they love Dan Campbell. And what's not to love about him? Except the fact that I still don't think his team is ready to compete with a team that is one of the better teams in the NFC right now
Right.
in the Philadelphia Eagles. They've improved in so many different ways on this team. Bringing in AJ Brown, where now you don't have to rely on Devonta Smith as your number one. Uh, a lot of trust in Dallas Goddard. I think they're deeper in their backfield because right now Miles Sanders is healthy. I think before the end of the year we see Kenneth Gainwell as the starting running back for this team. I think he does a lot more in that system for them, and they've brought in a bunch of new pieces on defense. This is just a far superior roster, in my opinion, than what the Lions have, and I yeah, I'm willing to lay the 5.5 on the road.
Yeah, they should. I think that's one that's easily. I think you lock that. Detroit is probably going to improve, but they're still a
Right.
long ways away from really kind of sneaking
I
up on
think
anybody.
they're in the same very similar situation to the Giants, where
Yeah,
if things break right, they can be a 7-8 win team.
yeah,
I just don't see it right now. And again, I think a lot of people are bought into the Lions based on what they saw on Hard Knocks, and I mean, I love Hard Knocks. I'm what's not to love it, especially when you have a head coach who's willing to go out and be so boisterous as Dan Campbell. What's not to love about that? But again, like I said, this is still a Jared Goff run football team with their number one receiver is a guy who had what, four big games at the end of last year. Can Amon-Ra St. Brown continue that into the next year? They brought in DJ Chark, who everyone seemed to love in Jacksonville and was never able to completely put it together.
right.
DeAndre Swift is the one guy that I think is reliable there, but and they do have a good offensive line, so that is the one caveat that may aid in their progression as the year goes on. I just don't see it this week. All right, so that concludes our best bets. We're now going to get into our studs, duds, and sleepers. And again, if you have any lineup questions, leave them in the comments, tweet them to us. We will answer them live on air. All right, studs of the week. Starting off with quarterback. Who you got?
Quarterback, my stud of the week. It pains me to say it because I really hate this team, but I I just have to give credit where credit is due. But this week for week one, starting now, I'm gonna go with Jameis Winston. I know a lot of people are still kind of not really sold on him, but I mean, last year he had a pretty good week one too. He threw for 5 touchdowns against Green Bay, and he's going against my Atlanta Falcons. Even in the matchups that he had when he was back at Tampa Bay as a starter, he averaged 30 points in fantasy against the Atlanta Falcons, and we're still trying to test out their defense to see if they really have improved or not. Always been in the bottom half pretty much. The weapons he has now, Mike Thomas is back. There's Chris Olave, Jarvis Landry, and Alvin Kamara is
Yeah.
there. So he has a plethora of weapons to where pretty much all he has to do is just be the bus driver. Just don't wreck it. Take care of everything, and he should be good to go. And I think a tough division matchup because it's always just a division opponent. You just never know. But the fact that you get to start off with Atlanta, who, like I said, we're not really too high on. I think he should have a good productive week one.
My stud quarterback of the week is Russell Wilson. And what's not to love about Russell Wilson this week? week one, he just happens to be playing in his old stomping grounds of Seattle on Monday
Can't
Night
make it up.
Football. Right, exactly. Almost as coincidental as what Deshaun Watson's first game is going to be. But that's for another show.
Yeah.
um, Russell Wilson's going to go into Seattle against a Seattle Seahawks team, which is just a shell of what it used to be when Russell Wilson was there. This is not a very good secondary. Russell Wilson has, in my opinion, and I know a lot of people are going to say, well, he had DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. I think the weapons of Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, who I think is going to have a big year, Albert Okwebunam, and then you have the duo in the backfield with Javonte Williams, and Javonte Williams is someone that I am bought into. I have a ton of shares of him this year. I think you have to remember last year, Javonte Williams finished as the RB17, getting 45% of the snaps. I mean, I see this easily being at worst for Javonte Williams, 60% of the snaps. To me, he's a lock to be a top 10 running back. I just think he's that explosive. I can see it even getting into the 65 to 70% timeshare of the snaps. And he is a tremendous pass catching running back as well. He's going to help Russell Wilson. So Russell Wilson, my stud quarterback for week one. Running backs, who you got?
My running back studs for week one, I couldn't even choose one of the others, so I just went with both the Packers running backs, Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon. The fact that there's going to be no Alan Lazard today for Green Bay, and we know who else they lost, as far as with Devontae Adams and Marquez Valdez-Scantling, both going to their respective teams. There's nobody in that wide receiving core that you would trust today, even with Aaron Rodgers. And like I understand that it's Aaron Rodgers, but it's just there's no one you can trust. But why not just go ahead and lean on your two running backs who can also provide? One of them, Aaron Jones, can provide catches out of the backfield for you too. So you might as well just go ahead and go with both either Aaron Jones or AJ Dillon, or if you're in one of those leagues where you got deeper leagues, you can probably end up playing both of them.
Yep. And to me, the one player, the one receiver that I thought he could trust, Alan Lazard, isn't. It looks like he's going to be inactive. Um, I can see someone like a Romeo Dobbs coming out and balling out week one. Um, Sammy Watkins, the week one special,
Yeah,
Sammy Watkins. Uh, but the two most talented players on that offense outside of Aaron Rodgers are Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. I mean, it's not even close.
yeah.
So the two of them are going to be heavily relied upon. David Bakhtiari is going. It looks like he is going to be
Okay,
playing today.
okay.
So that's just going to add to the intrigue for Jones and Dillon. So um, I'm going to go with someone that you mentioned in your quarterbacks for my stud running back, and that's Alvin Kamara. Um, he's going to be heavily utilized in the passing game. We saw it not really work out early on between Jameis Winston and Alvin Kamara last year. Then they started to get on the same page, and Alvin Kamara even ended up with a 19 target game.
Hmm.
I think in Jameis Winston's last full game as a starter. Uh, and this is sorry to say, but a Falcons defense that I think a lot of DFS and fantasy players are going to be picking on this year.
Yep.
So Alvin Kamara is my stud running back. I've utilized him in a couple of my DFS lineups. There were just so many values, including we talked about Damian Pierce. the pricing for Damian Pierce for week one came out well before Damian Pierce was named the starter, and I think on FanDuel he's only at 5,400. Yeah, I've got him everywhere. But Alvin Kamara, I think, is a real good value this week in DFS. All right, wide receiver studs. Who you got?
A stud wide receiver for this week for week one. Even though I'm not a big fan of his quarterback, I just think the matchup works in his favor, and that's Devonta Smith. He doesn't have to be the number one target now. Now that the fact that they have AJ Brown, so when you think about AJ Brown, now Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert in at tight end, and then we mentioned Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell. Uh, Obviously, Philadelphia runs the ball pretty well, but with AJ Brown coming in, obviously, to not trying to like necessarily disrespect Devontae Smith, but if I'm the defensive coordinator, my
Oh
main
yeah,
thing is now probably stopping
absolutely,
AJ Brown first. I got to stop
absolutely.
AJ Brown first. So when you're thinking about, okay, well, we stop AJ Brown, now that's giving more chances, more
Yep.
targets to Devontae Smith. If Jalen Hurts can get the ball to him, that's
And
the
you
only
also have to look
thing.
at the fact that Devonta Smith has a full year
Yeah.
of chemistry that he's been able to build with Jalen Hurts. He has that extra year over AJ Brown. So
Yep.
yeah, if you're gonna open up more single coverage, and there there are very few second cornerbacks in the NFL that are going to be able to contain Devonta Smith in a
Right.
one-on-one situation.
Yeah, and then I think Detroit was either second to last or dead last yards allowed passing, or so obviously this, like we said, Hard Knocks was great. It was nice to see them because it's always nice to watch Hard Knocks, but that roster still has a lot of things to be worked on, and I think this should be a easy week one for Devonta Smith.
Yeah. My week one stud wide receivers, Michael Pittman Jr. Uh, Again, someone who early on in draft season I was able to get third, even as late as the early fourth round. But he ended up going near the 2-3 turn in most drafts. Um, he's got a dramatic quarterback upgrade. And there's a chance that he gets to see a rookie cornerback making his debut in the NFL. Uh, I think we all think Derek Stingley is going to be a good ball player, but this is a tough assignment if he's given it week one. Michael Pittman, someone that I can see easily eclipsing 150 targets this year. Um, and we all know how efficient he is when he does get the ball in his hand. So Michael Pittman Jr., one of the few wide receivers that I would lock in with a touchdown this week.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned about Darius Stingley. Uh, I like him too. I think he is going to be a pretty good corner. But Lovie Smith in that defense kind of likes to mainly do more zone schemes, and he's better at pressing and playing
Yeah,
man more than really zone. So it's going to be interesting to see how he's going to fit into that defense, and I
that's
think
all
it's
right.
going to take him a while.
He's only going to have to worry about it for 1 year. I mean, what's Lovey Smith doing as a head coach? Why that again? That's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
uh, Tight end stud of the week. Who you got?
I'm going in with Pittsburgh with Pat Fryermuth. Um, the matchup, I know a lot of people, just think about Cincinnati and the run that they had and everything last season. But the matchup works in his favor too, and I think he gives Mitch Trubisky a nice safety target, a good blanket to have too, because I'm not sure. I think Deontay Johnson is still
He's
scheduled
good
to
to go.
play. Okay,
He's
he's
good
good
to
to
go.
go.
Yeah,
So that's fine. And then obviously everybody hopped on the George
Jordan
Pickens
Pickens.
train. Uh, in the preseason, what he had.
He's
But
still the number
uh,
3 receiver there.
yeah, yeah. So I'm just like,
Chase Claypool's still ahead of him on the depth
yeah.
chart. So
I'm like, guys, like, trust me, UJ fans, I love them, but I'm like, wait, there's still other receivers there, and
yeah,
Fryer move.
yeah.
Since Cincinnati was actually bottom five in targets, catches, and pass yards allowed to tight ends, and he had two great games against them last season, and that was with Ben Roethlisberger as his quarterback. So now we get a younger, more mobile Mr. Trubisky. And then, if times get too crazy to where if that pass rush can get to Brisky, obviously Fryer Moose should be his first safety blanket there. And I think he should have a pretty good week just because everybody's thinking about the receivers. I think he could still have a nice little matchup against those linebackers.
Yeah, I really like Pat Fryermuth. uh, he's you were saying that he's going to be a safety blanket for Mitch Trubisky, and look at someone like, I mean, Trey Burton. It was really the best tight end that
Yeah, that he
he's
had
ever had to
probably.
play with. And Trey
Yeah,
Burton is nowhere close to being at the level of a Pat Fryermuth. And Trey Burton still eclipsed. He was at 55 catches in an injury-shortened season. So Mitch Trubisky is going to be looking for the tight end. Um, and again, in that new system, we'll see how long Mitch Trubisky is the quarterback
yeah,
for Pittsburgh. But we do know that he's quarterback for Week 1. Pat Fryermuth and the Cincinnati Bengals. The one spot that they were not very good in last year was covering the tight end. So it should be a matchup that could be exploited. I'm going with Dalton Schultz, tight end for the Cowboys. Um, I don't think, and we're going to get into in the duds portion. I don't think a lot of us are expecting the Cowboys to be able to run the ball with much efficiency against this the Tampa Bay front line, especially the interior. Uh, Dalton Schultz, to me, he's the number 2 target on a team that I think, can easily eclipse 40 touchdown passes on the season. Dalton Schultz, I mean, I could easily see him being a top 4, top 5 tight end by the time this season is over. Could he get into the top 3? There's a chance, but I think those top 3 are pretty set with Kelsey, Andrews, and Pitts. But if you want to tell me that Dalton Schultz is going to leapfrog George Kittle, he's going to leapfrog Darren Waller, I could easily see it happening. And Week 1 national stage, they're going to want to be able to put up the points. So yeah, Dalton Schultz is somebody that I have a bunch of shares this year of.
he actually, when how I listened to him, he was my tight end for. I leapfrogged him
Yeah.
over Kittle and Darren Waller just because of the fact that Trey Lance is getting being a new starter now in San Francisco. We don't know how much of an efficient passer he's going to be, and then the fact that Adams coming in from Green Bay to the Raiders does take away some of those targets that Waller was getting. So I do think that Schultz, just off of the fact that outside of CD Lamb, he should get the most targets out of those pass catchers in Dallas. So and Dak Prescott has had a great rapport with him. Yeah,
Mhm.
even while Amari Cooper was there. So I see him as a tight end for, and even depending on what happens with Pitts and Mariota, he could end up being in the 3 too. So I'm very high on Dalton Schultz this year as well.
Yeah, and George Kittle is inactive
And active,
for
yep.
Week 1, so that's something to make sure if you have him in your lineups that we're taking care of right now. All right, let's head over to the duds of the week and quarterbacks. Who you got?
Uh, I took the Packers running backs as my studs. For dud, I had to go with Aaron Rodgers. and it's not necessarily, like I said, trying to disrespect them or anything, but the fact that there's no Alan
Who's he going to
Lazard,
throw to?
yeah, who does he have to throw the ball to? I mean, I don't know. Is Robert Tonyan even playing? Is he listed to go?
We have to wait.
Yeah,
He's questionable. So
yeah. So it's just, yeah. Who can he throw the ball to? So I just really just by the off of the default of not having Lazard and not knowing who else could he really throw the ball to. Uh, like I said, maybe Samuel Watkins might have his usual week 1 show out game, and that'd be it. But outside of that, I don't know who else he could throw the ball to. So I think he's just gonna be handing that ball off more to Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon, and probably screen passes, short complete passes, and leaving it
and
at
it
that.
and it's a Minnesota team that he's actually struggled against
Yeah,
over the last couple years. Um, yeah, Rogers is really a mystery to me right now because we don't know how they're going to utilize the running backs. We don't know how they're going to uh, put out their wide receivers in which spot on the field, in who's going to get the majority of the snaps. Everything is still a question mark right now with this passing game, and I get it. There are a lot of leagues where people drafted Aaron Rodgers as their only quarterback, and he's someone that you're going to have to play. But in DFS, there's no way I'm touching Aaron Rodgers.
yeah. Yeah, especially not this week for sure.
Yeah, and so you're going with one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. I'm going to go with potentially the greatest quarterback of all time. Tom Brady's my dud of the week, and it's something that we hit on earlier in the show. The interior of this offensive line scares me to death, and it's why I have 0 shares of Leonard Fournette this year. 0 shares of Leonard Fournette. I just it the one place that teams have consistently been able to get to Tom Brady when they've been able to knock him off his game, it's with interior pass rush. That's going to be made a hell of a lot easier based on what they're putting out there right now in the interior of that offensive line. I think Micah Parsons, we're going to see him in the backfield a whole lot. I still do think that there's a chance that Tampa Bay can win this, but I mean that it scares me week 1, especially. What was he doing during those 11 days? He missed 11 days of training camp of mystery. Was it? I mean, and now we're hearing all these rumors about the a pending divorce between him and Giselle. Is that on his mind? I can't do it week 1.
Yeah,
Can't do it week 1.
yeah. It's just a lot of distractions. That's
Yeah,
just that's just going on, and I, I wasn't like at least like too phased about it, just because I know like it's Tom Brady, but just for week 1, yeah, I would just leave it alone, just because of the fact that, like I said, he missed that week and a half pretty much of training camp, and then the fact that not sure about the interior offensive line, how well that running game is going to be. I would just leave it. I would just leave it alone for sure. And Dallas wants their revenge because they were pretty close to getting Tampa Bay last year too.
yeah.
So I'm right there with you. I'm staying away from TB12 at least this week for sure.
All right, who you got as your dud running back of the week?
I'm going with Damian Harris for the New England Patriots. Uh, I just don't think he's going to get enough touches.
Yep.
Unless he can get you a touchdown or anything, it's gonna be hard for him to get the touches. I mean, we don't. Is there? First of all, is there even really a number one guy there in the running back room for New England? So that's the
There
thing. We don't
is.
we don't we don't. Is there really
There's.
one? But I think it
I
is.
think there is, but it's not Damien Harris.
Yeah, but it's not Damian Harris. I just can't see. I don't think he'll get enough touches, and unless he gets touchdowns, I'm just staying far, far, far away from Damian
Yeah,
Harris.
again, there's someone who I may have one share of because he fell into like the 10th round or something like that. But and we'll talk about his running mate in a little bit later on. But yeah, Damian Harris in negative game scripts is just not going to offer a whole lot of upside for a fantasy team. If they're going to be playing from behind, it's not going to be Damian Harris.
Right.
And I think that this is a game that we can easily see the Miami Dolphins jumping out to a quick lead, and they're playing catch up for 2.5, 3 quarters. So, yeah, I'm on board with that. My running back dud of the week is going to be Ezekiel Elliott. Again, this is uh, again in season long. It's going to be really difficult to bench someone like Ezekiel Elliott. I get it. But DFS, there is absolutely zero way I'm going anywhere near Ezekiel Elliott against this Tampa Bay front seven. Uh, it would not shock me if Zeke was held to 42 yards or something like that. And yeah, Zeke can he can give you a little bit in the passing game, but do we end up seeing more Tony Pollard in that case? Is he going to be the guy that they rely upon to catch passes out of the backfield? So Zeke is someone I'm staying away from.
Oh, yeah, I'm. If I went and wanted to do maybe like a single game parlay on that, I'm smashing the under on the rushing yards for Zeke. Just it's so hard to run on that Tampa Bay defense.
Yep.
Uh, it's so difficult. So just for this week, yeah, you unless you just have to play him and have to start him just because maybe there's nobody else that you trust
Right.
on your team, then you just have to play him and eat that. Uh, I wouldn't play Ezekiel Elliott this week.
All right. Dud wide receiver. Who you got?
I hate to pick on him because I did love the draft pick for him that we got from him, but Drake London, he's going to be the number one receiver for Atlanta
Hmm.
this year because there's nobody else there to be the number one receiver necessarily. But first matchup, and probably he's going to end up going up against Marshawn Lattimore. Uh, that's going to be tough. He didn't play much in the preseason, dealing with that knee injury, and on top of that, the connection right there with Marcus Mariota, we don't know if he has it just yet. So the fact that going up against that Saints defense and Marshawn Lattimore, no real connection with Marcus Mariota. I just think right now you just have to take bench Drake London. Maybe in the long run, later on down the season, he could be something good, but week one, it's a no go for me.
Yeah, he's one of those not yet guys.
Yeah,
We need to. I'm going to need to see it before I plug him in. My wide receiver dud of the week is DK Metcalf.
that's an easy one too.
Yeah, I mean, we saw him. He actually had more of a rapport with Geno Smith in the 4 games that Geno played last year. But this is a Broncos defense that nobody is talking about. That last year was one of the top 5 defenses in the league, and they were on the field a hell of a lot because of how bad the quarterback play was there. They don't have to worry about that this year. They're going to be on the field a lot less this year than they were last year. Um, DK Metcalf is just someone. Again, I don't even know if I have any shares of DK this year. That quarterback uh, tandem there of Geno and Drew Lock just absolutely scared me. I think I may have drafted him one time thinking, oh, Jimmy Garoppolo will end up there. Uh,
Right.
that was probably my thinking at the time, but I would have only taken him with an extreme value. But this week I'm looking to fade DK Metcalf.
you just kind in a way you just kind of have to. It's just because, like you said, there's no way that you can really just trust them with either one of those quarterbacks. So it's gonna be tough, kind of on a week to week basis to see what you want to do with DK.
Yep. All right. Rounding out the duds, we've got tight ends.
My tight end dub for this week is gonna be Mike Gesicki. Um,
He's
New
my
New
tight end
England.
dud of the year.
New England has always been pretty good against
Yep.
the tight ends. They usually make sure that they don't really get off, and I just think it's just not his week this week. Maybe not even this year, just because the fact that there's going to be a big, probably big point of emphasis to get the ball to Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Um,
And then
and on
I
top of that, with
think
Chase Edmonds in the
Chase
backfield, so
Edmonds.
it's just
Absolutely.
he may not get the targets that he used to get just because of the weapons that they have now. So I'm definitely fading away from Mike Gesicki this week.
Yeah. Like I said, I've faded away from Gasecki everywhere. Zach Ertz is going to be my tight end dud of the week. Um, he's been questionable for about 2 weeks. Overnight, Schefter came out and said that he's likely to play. That doesn't mean I'm playing him. Um, I think we see a lot of two tight end uh, formations for the Arizona Cardinals. They're going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. So, yeah, the rule is that they may be playing from behind and they're going to be passing a lot, but I'm not sure that he's going to be the one that's going to be on the field as much. Max Williams is back. I can see him eating into the snaps in one tight end formations for the Cardinals. So Zach Ertz is just someone I just don't trust because of the injury. There's a in the range of outcomes where he doesn't make it through this whole game as well. So, yeah, Zach Ertz is someone that I'm going to be staying away from, especially when there's somebody that is available on a bunch of teams and is a lot cheaper on DFS that we'll talk about in the sleepers,
Yeah.
which we will get into right now. Sleeper quarterback of the week. Who you got?
It was actually quite a few options that I looked into, but one that I saw that could be a sleeper this week, I went with Trevor Lawrence.
Hmm.
He has a new revamped wide receiving core. He has Christian Kirk down there. He gets Travis Etienne back this season. Uh, he actually has a formidable head coach with him, um, who can probably get him right this season and coach him up right. And Washington allowed the most points to a quarterback last season, and there's still no Chase Young right now. Um, that defense is a little shaky right now, so I wouldn't be surprised if Trevor Lawrence had a pretty nice week this week against Washington.
Yeah, absolutely. And in two quarterback leagues, absolutely fine
Yeah,
with starting Trevor Lawrence uh, over there. My sleeper quarterback of the week is going to be Matt Ryan. Again, we talked about him with Michael Pittman. There's a lot of excitement there about the kid Pierce
yeah,
and Paris Campbell actually looked really good from what I was reading in training camp. That he was almost like establishing himself as the number two receiver there. And Jonathan Taylor, Mo Alley Cox, he's got a bunch of weapons that are reliable. And against a Houston Texans defense, again, we don't know how much he's going to be asked to pass, but
yeah,
I think the floor is just so high right now with Matt Ryan when you're looking at other quarterbacks that are in his ranking range. His floor is just so high that he's just not going to lose you this week.
yeah. Yeah, and the fact is with a way much more improved offensive line, he should be
Oh
able to
yeah.
stay upright. So definitely a nice value pick for him.
All right, running back. Who you got?
It's funny you mentioned him earlier because of how hard it's going to be maybe for Dallas to run the ball. But I went with Tony Pollard just
Hmm.
because of this is probably going to be his game, just because of how hard it's going to be to run on Tampa Bay. But as far as receiving running backs, Tampa Bay has given up the
Yeah,
second most receptions to running backs last year, and they gave up the most in 2020. So running backs that can catch out of the backfield usually have a nice day against Tampa Bay. So especially your flex, your PPR leagues. If you need to go really that deep, your third running back or something like that, Tony Pollard could be a nice sleeper for you this week.
absolutely. The pass catching running back is going to be the way to go against and all year. I think
Yeah.
against this Tampa Bay defense. It shouldn't be a surprise who I'm going with, and it's Ramondre Stevenson, who I think is the best running back in that backfield. James White is retired. And I know that there's a lot of talks about Ty Montgomery. Ram- when Ramondre Stevenson is on the field, you're not giving anything away. You're not tipping your hand. When Ty Montgomery's on the field, you're tipping your hand
Pass.
that it's going to be a pass.
Yeah.
Ramondre Stevenson can do everything, and it, I am expecting Ramondre Stevenson to outtouch Damian Harris this year. I easily see him being the number one running back there in New England this year. I think there's a good chance they're playing from behind, which means he'll be on the field more. I think he's going to be the guy, especially early on when they are uh, playing from behind in passing situations. And I think that he could be the better pure running back too. So uh, that's who I'm going with, Ramondre Stevenson, one of my guys this year. So wide receiver, who you got?
I'm going with one of the guys for the New York Giants, and Kadarius Tony. Uh, like you said, the new offense it should be able to get these targets around here for Daniel Jones. And Tennessee was second most fantasy points allowed against opposing wide receivers last year. They have some great individual pieces back there on the defense, but sometimes as a whole, they do allow receivers to really get off. And I think Kadarius Tony could have one of those weeks to where he could be a sleeper for somebody this week.
Yeah, he to me he's more of a DFS start than he is a season long. Um, I don't know how much I could trust a Kadarius Tony right now, especially with the injury history that he's had so far playing in games and also throughout camp. It's just been this and that and this and that and this and that. Uh, but when he's on the field, he's proved that he is a special ball player. So he's one of those true upside guys. I'm going to go with Joshua Palmer, wide receiver for the Chargers. Again, both of us were saying at the beginning of the show how much we like the over in this game. And sure, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen are going to get theirs. But Joshua Palmer really opened a lot of eyes this year. He was someone that I loved coming out of Tennessee when they drafted him in the third round. I thought when they drafted him in the third round, that meant they were going to end up moving on from Mike Williams.
Right.
I thought he was going to be the Mike Williams replacement. So in two dynasty leagues that I had him, I was a little upset that I wasn't going to get the immediate impact. But I still think that Joshua Palmer uh, has the chance to, and again, more of a DFS play than a season long. But if you told me that Joshua Palmer ended up with 5 for 62 and a touchdown, I mean that's
I'll take that.
a
Yeah.
solid output from somebody who's going to be that far down on a lot of rankings. So I do have a couple Joshua Palmer shares on DFS this week, and again, this is going to be one of those games that I think can end up in the with the point total in the 60s. So you're going to want pieces of that game. So I like Joshua Palmer. And to round out the sleepers of the week, tight end, who you got?
At tight end, I'm going with Isaiah Likely from the Baltimore Ravens. Um, I just think they need that extra tight end to be right there with Mark Andrews, because the wide receiving core, we don't know much about anything, if nothing, yet. I mean, there's Rashad Bateman, but he has to still prove a lot of things as well. So I think if they want to maybe want to go into some more two tight end sets, they could definitely use Isaiah Likely to partner with Mark Andrews. And I mean, against the Jets, whose defense is still trying to improve as well. They gave up the third most fantasy points to tight ends, so I think it's a good sleeper matchup. Probably again, just maybe for a DFS too. Maybe not
Right.
season long, because obviously there's Mark Andrews there, but definitely for a DFS, I would look into Isaiah Likely.
This is a kid who I think can, and again, I don't want to put them in the category of Gronkowski and Hernandez,
Yeah.
but they're they could be the junior version of that this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think Isaiah Likely is going to be on the field a lot more than people think. I think, and you said it. Who is it? Other than Rashad Bateman, what other wide receivers are they really invested in or can count on to say? I mean, is it going to be Devin Duvernay, James Prochet? I mean, there isn't a whole lot that I think is going to really worry other teams about what they're going to be doing in terms of the wide receiver. And we know how much the Ravens like to run the ball. Instead of putting out another wide receiver, they put out another tight end who's going to be much better in the blocking scheme. Isaiah Likely is definitely someone that I can see finishing as a top 15, 20 tight end on the season. And that's with Mark Andrews all but all but locked into a top three tight end finish this year as well.
Right.
So yeah, Isaiah Likely is someone that I like a lot. And in a game like this, there's a chance that they have a comfortable enough lead in the third, fourth quarter that they decide to rest Mark Andrews, and Isaiah Likely is then the number one tight end for a quarter. So yeah, Isaiah Likely in a DFS pinch is someone that is very interesting. The guy that I though have most often is David Njoku. He's got Jacoby Brissett throwing the ball, not a whole lot on the outside. Yeah, they have Amari Cooper, but he's still new to the team, new to the system. Donovan Peoples Jones. There's no OBJ, no Jarvis Landry anymore. David Njoku right now, I think, is the most physically gifted pass catcher on that team. And with a quarterback who is similar to Jacoby Brissett, they're going to look for that safety valve.
Mm-hmm.
And David Njoku is just someone that I think has a clear shot to finish as a top 8, top 10 tight end this year in fantasy. All right. Well, that is going to do it for this week. Marthani, want to thank you again for hopping on. We will do this again next week. Make sure you're following us on Twitter. I am at rstern33. Marthani is at IM_M_Sanders_. And make sure you're following BackSportsPage on all social media at BackSportsPage, and you're checking out the website, BackSportsPage.com, for all the great content going up on a daily basis. You won't be disappointed. Marthani, want to wish you a lot of luck. Week 1, we got football, baby.
Yes, sir. We
All
got
right.
it.
Everyone have a great week, and we will see you next week. Be well.